Story of Esther Mack. On July 11, 1902, in St. Stephen's, Berkely County, South Carolina, Esther Mack was born into the loving household of Dr. James Mack and Hattie G. Mack. The youngest of 13 children, Esther grew up surrounded by the joy and bustle of family life. Though her parents were already in their 40s, the Mack home was filled with the laughter of 11 siblings still at home. Her two sisters shaped Esther's childhood most deeply. Beulah, just 3 years older, became her constant playmate, while Evelyn, 14 years her senior, often stepped into the role of a second mother. Together, they nurtured Esther's imagination and sense of belonging. Childhood in St. Stephen's. Esther's early years were rich with adventure. Her siblings recalled riding farm animals, playing tricks on one another, and even holding their own church services by the lake. They even had a pertain choir where they learned to sing like their mother, a skill they would pass down to later generations. Tragedy touched the family in 1909 when her brother Harold passed away. Soon after, her mother's health declined. In those years, Evelyn, though newly married, shouldered much of the household responsibility, while Beulah and young Esther helped as best they could. In 1910, 7 Mack children were still at home, and Esther was already a schoolgirl who could read and write. Since the first public school for black students in St. Stephen's wasn't built until 1923, her education likely began in the churches where her father preached, with Dr. James Mack serving as both minister and teacher. 1910 Federal Census, St. Stephen's, Berkely County, South Carolina. Time of change. When their mother passed away in 1916, the family's foundation shifted. By 1920, only Daniel, Beulah, Gabriel, and Esther remained on the farm with their father and his new wife, Razor. That same year, Esther moved to Augusta, Georgia, to live with her sister Evelyn and her husband, James Costello. 1920 Federal Census, Augusta, Georgia. Education and new beginnings. In Augusta, Esther pursued her education at the Payne College for colored students, where she achieved her college degree. This was a rare accomplishment, as few black students in the South could afford such an education. Whether it was Evelyn or her father who paid for the education is not known, but Esther carried this gift forward with gratitude. Welcome to Pittsburg. By 1930, Esther had met and married John Wesley Perry of Florida. Together, they joined the Great Migration of blacks who left the South in search of opportunity in the North. They settled in Pittsburg, Pennsylvania, at 3320 Ruthven Street in the Shenley Heights neighborhood. Esther earned her teaching license and began a career in education, while John secured a position at the post office. The 1940 census shows her sister Beulah's eldest daughter, Edith, living with Esther and John. It was Esther's turn to repay her family for the love, education, and support she had received growing up with kinfolk. With Beulah raising 8 children and expecting another, Esther opened her home to Edith, offering guidance and care. Family life in Pittsburg. In 1947, Edith Earl Roy Henderson. The 1950 census shows them living upstairs from Esther and John. Her nephews Sidney and Ruth were also staying with Esther. Over the years, grandnieces and nephews, including Gerard Michael, Arthuretta Holmes, and Asenath Holmes, spent summers up north with Aunt Esther, enjoying her warmth, wisdom, and generosity. federal census for Esther Perry. Though Esther never had children of her own, she became a mother figure and beloved caregiver to her nieces and nephews. Pittsburg soon became a hub for members of the Mack and Holmes families to visit or stay a while. They either moved there permanently or visited often, always finding love and welcome in Esther's home. Legacy of care. Esther's life was defined by devotion to her family and students. She continued teaching in Pittsburg schools for many years, nurturing generations of students with the same love of learning she had absorbed from her siblings in her youth. Like her sisters Beulah and Evelyn, her mother Hattie G., and her step-grandmother Mary Stevenson Bird, Esther embodied the family tradition of caring for children, whether kin or pupils. She passed the strength of motherhood on to every family member she cared for. On February 10, 1988, Esther Mack Perry passed away, leaving behind a legacy of compassion and dedication and roots that stretched throughout the family. True to her roots, she was laid to rest in the Mack Cemetery in St. Stephen, South Carolina, alongside the family members who had shaped her life. A keepsake for generations. This story was written and researched by Arthur L. Holmes too, and lovingly preserved so that future generations may remember the extraordinary life of Esther Mack. Her story is not only history, it is a reminder that love, care, and education are the greatest gifts we can pass on to our families.